Okay. Now, scroll down to that participants thing. Okay. It looks like I'm in.
Yeah, you are in. Two people have entered the waiting room. So see waiting room.
Click on participant.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So two people.
Now see where it says accept, decline.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is accept.
Ooh, folks coming.
All right, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect. Call me if you need me. I'm gonna sit down with my wife for 15 minutes before I jump on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Yep.
Hey, young man, how are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm a blessed man. Well, you don't age, do you?
Yeah, all right. You see this? How you been?
I'm a blessed man. I'm a blessed man. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for wanting to join. Be a part of this, man. It's something that you know how I am, D. Just trying to share, man. Just trying to share.
Any chance to grow and learn, man, it's a beautiful opportunity.
And share.
Yeah.
And share.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
No question.
We got to share our experiences, man. That's why first thing I'm gonna say to everybody is I hope my vibe indicates my tribe, and so everybody gives, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, of course.
I just want to be around people that want to share and grow and learn and and continue to just keep moving this thing forward. You got a lot of experiences, man, that these young cats need to know about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This thing is different, man. It's when you broke in the game, when I broke in this thing.
Totally different. It's totally different. I agree.
Right or wrong?
No, you're right. You hit the nail on the head.
I tell them, people ask me how have you, how did you break in? How have you been able to stay in this thing for this long? I just said, man, my first job was middle school coach, JV coach, varsity assistant coach, drive the bus, wash the uniform. Coach Vetter told me, no job too big, no job too small. Sweep the floor and sweep the floor. So, at the beginning for your practice, and then put all the equipment away after mine.
But that makes you humble and gives you a full understanding of everything that's necessary, though. Like, these cats want to just go straight to the ACC.
But you know what?
Don't work like that.
You know what, D? This thing, and you and I both know, this thing ain't about levels.
Yeah.
The level is within yourself, man. It's like, okay, where can I have the most impact, man? You know what I'm saying? And we like you said, everybody's in a hurry to quote unquote get to the highest level, get to the ACC. Mm-hmm. Okay, but guess what, man? If you're not having an impact and you're not touching lives and your reasoning for getting into coaching has now changed because you quote unquote have made it to the ACC or the Power Five, mm-hmm. then you ain't gonna last, man.
A big thing for me as I've gotten older too is quality of life, man. Working with somebody who understands family. You know what I'm saying? And like,
amen. Yes, sir.
You can't be raising everybody else's kids and not raising your own kids.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I both was in the ACC at the same time. And, when I left, when after 2 years at Pitt, that was the number one thing for my family. The next move, man, we had three things, D. And number one was quality of life. Mm-hmm. Number two was I was definitely 100% going to make sure I was with a cat that I knew. Well, I wasn't going out on a limb no more. You know what I'm saying? That I knew.
You can't do that, man. Because some cats are out of their mind, man.
Yes, sir. And so I said,
no, life, man.
Yep. And then the third thing I wanted was, since we had just, gone 0-18, was that I wanted to be quote unquote, I wanted to be with a winning team, because you know how with us, the losses stick with us.
No question
the wins,
about it.
We don't get no wins.
Yeah.
What's up, AK?
What's up, Coach? How are you?
I'm blessed, man. Introduce yourself, man, when you come on, please. Can you hear me?
Austin Kelly, George Washington men's basketball. I got you.
But you know what I'm saying, Daryl? We just came off a 0-18 season, so the losses, they stick to us. You know what I'm saying? But the wins don't.
Yeah.
I had a dude that tell me, say, "Well, Coach, you were an assistant on a team that lost that was 0-18." I said, "Yeah, but I was also assistant on 2 teams that won national championships and won 2 gold medals too."
Let's talk about those.
So what you got for me? So you got to prove you can win. Oh, okay. Well, I already done that. I can have more winning seasons than I had losing seasons.
And the person you were talking to probably has not done what you did
Absolutely.
already. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. But you look good, man. How's the family?
Everybody's good, man. We're a win right now is everybody's safe and healthy. We're bored to death, but we're safe and healthy. That's a win. Yes,
that is truly a factual statement, man. It's amazing, not to talk politics or anything like that, but just, as coaches, and Austin jump in this too, as coaches, we always telling everybody get on the same page. Everybody got to be on the same page. Everybody got to be rowing the boat in the same direction, but now we in a pandemic and we got governors, this governor opening up, this governor not opening up. How are we supposed to, as a country,
It's disjointed from the top, because instead of like we having one uniform thing that we're going to do, he just said everybody just do your own thing, which, I mean, we're all connected. How can we do our own thing? Plus you can travel in between states. So it's no way that it's not like it's a border and you can't go past the border.
Right.
So like we all need to be doing the same thing. And I still don't get why we don't have mass testing. Like I'm completely baffled and confused that we didn't do mass testing earlier, so that we can trace it and then we can show the people who know they have it or quarantine, so they're not out giving it to other people.
Yeah, nah, facts, real facts. What you got on that, AK? Austin, you muted.
Well, it's just crazy to me. Every state. You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that 50 states got 50 different set of rules with it. Makes zero sense to me.
So we just gotta keep praying, man, and keep like you said, Daryl, just being safe, as possible, making
down here in Georgia, we're doing everything before. We're like the guinea pigs. No, we're just opening up. We open up tattoo parlors and barbershops. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? This is crazy.
I guess y'all do have the CDC, so I guess that's what they're saying.
I don't know if that can help us if it starts spreading like wildfire, though.
Yeah, we
have we're like, I don't know, 20. We're like in the low to mid 20s in the total number of tests that we've done, which is crazy because the CDC is here, but we've done one of the lowest number of tests.
I tell you what, our governor here, man, the next time she run for office, she gonna win hands down.
Yeah,
unbelievable. Now we're a small state, but guess what? We got Connecticut on one side. We got New York, and so we kind of, in both of those are hard hit states. But she been a leader.
Good.
She's been a leader, man. She has stepped up and said this is how we're gonna do it. And everybody just falling in the suit, man. Just falling in the suit. And so our state's been really good. When she comes on, if she got good news or bad news, she delivers it, and then she got a plan of action.
That's what the biggest thing is, just having a plan of action. Like, it's just we have no idea what's going on. What's next?
No.
Get on there and just talk about what you think you've done well. Let's talk about what's going to happen in the future and how we can get everybody back to some sense of normalcy.
Yep. No question. No question. No question. LB.
What's going on? How we doing, gentlemen? How we doing?
Man, introduce yourself to the rest of the tribe.
Oh, man, Larry Blunt. I think I know all the gentlemen in this group. Coach LeBerry, I think I do not know you, but Coach Kelly, Coach Phillips, how we doing? Coach Sutton?
Yes, sir, man. Absolutely. Blessed man. Bill Phillips, talk to him.
Suck Russ, Coach Mojo, Coach Maddox. I think I know the group. How we doing?
That is good stuff, man. Bill
What's up,
Phillips, how are you?
everybody? I'm doing great. Appreciate the invite. Great to see a couple people on here, and hope everybody's staying strong through all this. And hopefully we get out of this soon.
Absolutely. We got Coach Joseph on the line. Hey, 712, baby. 712 on the Zoom.
Yeah. What's up, Coach? How y'all feeling, everyone?
I'm a blessed man. Introduce yourself, T.
Tyson Wheeler from UMass. He's a player at URI. Coach Sutton didn't want to get me hired over there, so.
Come on, spitting facts.
Yeah, 712, baby. 712. 712.
Everybody good?
We all blessed, man.
Healthy.
Thank y'all so much for coming on here, man. I really appreciate it. Paul Hewitt, you on here?
Yes, I am. How you doing, Kevin?
Hey, Professor. How you doing?
I'm good. You didn't see my college grades, so I'll take the professor. You know better. I'll take that compliment.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
How was your day?
It was a blessing. Thank you so much for asking, man. Dave is such a leader,
Yep.
and that's one thing that I really want you to touch on, and I know you will. There's a huge difference in these times with coaching and leadership that's going on,
Right.
And Dave is a tremendous leader, man. He's just
That's good to hear.
he's just doing things the right way, man.
Yeah.
Just can't be fortunate enough to work with a guy like that. So I'm a blessed man.
Kevin, how many of these have you done?
Oh man, I'm up to 8 now, Paul.
Oh wow.
I'm trying to. Well, this is my first one of what I say my tribe. All
Okay.
the people that you're gonna talk to tonight, they're part of my tribe. You know what I'm saying? So,
I invited one from my tribe, Daryl Barry. I gave him the information. So see that strange face.
And you taught him well too, because he was one of the first ones on here.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see you listen to something.
These dudes along the way.
These Trinidadians, man, it's rough dealing with them. They get a little hard-headed. Not that Jamaicans can be any less hard-headed.
You taught him well, Paul. He was on it early. What's up, D?
How you
Come
doing?
on, introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, Dwayne Broussard from TCU, and glad to be here. Coach Sutton, thank you very much for inviting me to do this, man.
Absolutely.
Over this past year, I think you and I have developed a really neat relationship, and I'm looking forward to sharing with Coach Hewitt. And again, just thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Okay.
Just don't talk about the fight, Dwayne. Just don't talk about the fight.
No, we're not going to talk about the fight. We're not going to talk. And then Coach LeBerry, we're not going to talk about China. We're not going to talk about that either.
Please, no.
We ain't going to talk about that. We ain't gonna talk, but I see you got that shirt on, though.
That was crazy. When I saw you, that's the first thing I thought about.
Yeah. How you doing, brother? You good?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Good. Okay.
Hey, Dwayne, why don't you give a quick, tell them about what happened. Talk about the fight I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, the fight. So this was, let me think.
In the Stone Age.
Villanova. It was it 1995?
Yeah, right about there. Yeah.
In 1995. So Coach Hewitt was associate head coach at Villanova, and I
Assistant
was
assistant coach
at Villanova.
Yeah.
Had a really good team. I think Coach Lapis was the head coach at the time.
Yes, he was. Yep.
And I was a young coach at Bradley University, my
That's
alma
right.
mater. And we had ventured over to Philadelphia to play against Villanova. And I think at the time you were ranked. I mean, you had a really good team.
Yeah, we did.
And so I want to say you had guys like Lawson and Carnegie and Kerry Kittles.
Yeah.
It was a very, very good team. Well, anyway, we had a pretty good team for our level as well. And the game was back and forth. I mean, it was a really, really good game. We were shooting shots. They were scoring. And we go into halftime, and I think we might have been up by 1 or 2 points.
Right.
And so I'm sure Coach Lapis and yourself, Coach Hewitt, kind of fired the troops up, and it came out.
Oh, we have really calm halftime talks, right, Daryl?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't even want to get into that.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever it was, the team was greatly motivated and came out, and it became really, really physical. And we had a young man by the name of Ben Coupette, who was this really thin kid from Chicago. He was about 6'11", but he probably weighed 175 pounds.
Wow.
And he's from Siena High School. So, I mean, he had a pretty tough background, but he didn't really play tough. So, you know, that type of kid. So there was a rebound. And I want to say that Carnegie went up and got it.
Yeah.
And then Ben Coupette decided that he was going to try to take it away. And he went up and tried to challenge Carnegie. And Carnegie just was like, no, you're not going to get it. So Ben tried to buck up to him. And then you didn't know this, Coach Hewitt, but we had another young man on our team named Kerry Burrell. So Kerry and Ben were teammates at Simeon. But Kerry was the tougher of the two.
Right.
So then when Carnegie swung or swung his elbows because Ben antagonized him, there was just this massive fight. I mean, it was just an unbelievable
and
fight.
Chuck was Chuck was a calm guy, but he was not the guy to get upset.
He was not the guy to get upset. I mean, it was just an amazing deal.
It was wild.
It was wild. It was wild. And to say the least, I was quite embarrassed, Coach. And again, you know, I apologize for that because you just had a really good team and you invited us to come in. That was a bye game too, you know.
Yeah,
it was a bye game, but that actually helped to forge my relationship with you because I had some interesting talking points after that. You know? Some really interesting talking points. And but you've been nothing but a gentleman, a scholar, all those years, and greatly appreciate you, man.
I've enjoyed our conversations. So,
hey,
Kevin, whatever you want to do, let me know.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. First of all, thank everybody for coming. One thing that I want to, you know, say is that I hope my vibe is represented by my tribe, and you guys are people that I have a personal relationship with, and that I have gained a great deal from. You know, so when I decided I wanted to do this, I wanted to reach out and touch base, you know, and have this opportunity to do this with my tribe. You know, people that have like-minded thoughts and then also have their own thoughts, but more importantly, they understand, you know, the platform that we have in this game of basketball and this business of basketball. So, you know, thank you very much, you know, for that. If you have to leave, just go ahead and feel free and you'll go ahead and leave with you know, leave the meeting. You know, no problem. I know a lot of people got a lot of things going on. 7:30 at night. You know, we'll get a chance to introduce ourselves probably later on because we want to get started. You know, Paul is gracing us with his time. So I just want to make sure that we give him all the time he needs to share and I don't want him to feel rushed in any way. When Paul starts talking, if we could just everybody mute their computers so it won't be any back noise or anything like that. I think that's really, really important. There'll be enough time at the end to ask questions. So like I when I shot you a text, make sure you ask questions. One thing that Paul and I talked about, we want to make sure this is as interactive as it possibly can be. So we want to give them enough time to answer questions, and hopefully everybody will have questions. Okay. So with that being said, we just want to jump right into it. You know, the topic tonight is all things basketball. You know, our guest speaker is Paul Hewitt. He's a scout presently with the Los Angeles Clippers, but more than his title, Paul is a friend of mine. We have mutual friends, and we've had the opportunity to grow our own relationship after being connected to mutual friends. But he's somebody that I have, my career has been impacted, in a mighty way. How he has professionally navigated and handled his career with class, dignity, integrity, and just more important than anything else, he's a person that I try to look to and seek advice from, because he's always willing to, to share with me. So with that being said, I want to, turn the screen over. Under normal circumstances, we say we turn the mic over, but we're going to turn the screen over to Paul Hewitt.
Kevin, I appreciate it. And, like everybody else, we've been, sheltered in place, since March 15th or so. And to give my family dynamic, I see my man Skeeter's down there. He knows this. I got a wife and 3 daughters. So for the last 6 weeks, I can't get in a word edgewise, okay? So you guys are going to get everything I got. You're going to get words that I've had saved up for the last, I don't know how many weeks. So listen, I appreciate you guys being on here. When Kevin and I spoke about this, he just said, hey, just do whatever you want, talk about whatever you want. And between Daryl LeBarry and Skeeters, they probably know half of what I'm going to say because I got a lot to say about what's going on in the game today. And this is basically kind of like my stream of consciousness. And as I sit back and I watch what's going on in college basketball and really watch what's going on in the basketball world as a whole, working for the Clippers for the last 4 years has been an unbelievable education. I got in there in the fall of 2016. We had Blake Griffin on the roster. We had Chris Paul on the roster. We had DeAndre Jordan on the roster. And obviously at the age that those players were, and they were good players and good people, there had to be a switch. We had to kind of flip the roster and do it in a way where we could stay competitive because our coach, Doc Rivers, has been a winner his whole life. I think Doc's been an NBA coach for 20 seasons. One of them, he did get fired early at Orlando. But in those 20 seasons, 19 full seasons, he's only had 2 losing seasons. So it was important for Doc that we were able to make the changes we needed to make, but at the same time, stay competitive. Now, the first year after we started making the trades, we traded Chris Paul to the Houston Rockets, as you all know, Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons midway through the season, and we chose not to re-sign DeAndre Jordan. We were able to finish at 41-41, missed the playoffs by a game. Then the following year, we made the playoffs. And then this year, obviously, we had the great fortune of signing Kawhi Leonard, getting Paul George, where we had to give up a really good player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And the team was actually just starting to play. We were getting healthy. We were finally getting to the point where we could see our team developing when the shutdown happened. And I tell that story to say, watching them work, it's not a mystery that we were able to pull off. This organization was able to pull off what we pulled off because there was what we talk about all the time around the Clipper organization, perfect alignment. And it starts with the owner, Steve Ballmer. It carries down to Lawrence Frank, the team president, Doc Rivers, obviously our head coach, and then all throughout the organizations, we have certain things that we're looking for. And the number one thing that's important to the Clippers is the welfare of the players, the physical and mental welfare of the players. And we feel like if we can get those guys to understand that we're working in their best interests, we're going to get the most out of them. And that's why the year when we had those trades, when we lost Chris Paul, we traded Blake Griffin midway through the year. We had a tremendous season. And we finished at 500. And in the following year, with adding one rookie of consequence, we were able to get to the playoffs and take the Golden State Warriors to 6 games. But, making sure the players were first and foremost, even down to little things like in our training facility, if the players are in the team cafeteria eating, no one from the staff, coaching staff, anybody can be in there. That's their time. That's their place. We have to cede that area to them. Obviously, there are great demands placed on them, but again, we just kind of feel like what we have to do is to make sure that we're finding guys that obviously love playing the game and are going to be good teammates, but also we have to show them that, hey, we respect what they bring to our team. I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things. The number one thing I want to start with is all the coaches, and it's talking about the respect for the profession and also the responsibility you have. You have a chance as coaches to really change the life of young people. And some of the things I'm going to say here today are going to sound hypocritical to Daryl LeBarry because he played for me. But I've had a chance to grow and watch and learn. And I've always been a guy that really valued the player's future. And I think that's something that's got to be done all the time. Your goal, your number one goal is to teach the players how to reach their goals. It seems to me, I started coaching, I was a high school basketball coach in 1985. And from 1985 to 1990, when I got on the road at Fordham, I was at USC as a graduate assistant for George Raveling, which was the best thing I've ever done. And then I went to Villanova from 92 to 97, got the head coaching job at Siena in 97 to 2000, had an NCAA bid there, got to a second round of NIT, then got the Georgia Tech job, and 11 years at Georgia Tech, 5 NCAA bids, an NIT quarterfinal. We had a bunch of first round picks, lottery picks. had a lot of success there. And then the last 4 years at George Mason, I can't begin to tell you.
Over that you went to the national championship game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we went to the national championship game in 2004. Thanks. But what I've noticed from 85 when I started in high school to today, there's so many more people that are around these kids. I mean, there's just so many people that are in their ears, whether it's obviously the parents are there, the grassroots coaches, you got financial advisors, you got agents, you got friends. And so as coaches, it's so important that you develop a relationship with them where you start to teach them how to reach their goals, because they don't know how to reach their goals. That's one of the things I've learned. It's your job to help them quantify that pursuit of whatever they call success. And what I mean by quantify their pursuit, I mean, you've got to measure them every single day. Obviously, in the classroom, they're going to get measured on how they do on the exams, but every drill that you do, every conditioning test that you give them or a conditioning assignment you give them, you got to measure it, because one thing that these kids need to know is that you're an expert in what you do. And again, I'm watching it now. I'm not in the building every day with the Clippers, but when I do go out, I go out about once a month. It's interesting to watch Doc and his coaching staff, and they're doing all the things that I did as a college coach, all of you guys doing as college coaches. But it really is, it's what carries the day in terms of like, hey, here are the standards we're going to set, and here's what we expect you to reach. One of the things we're doing with the Clippers right now is we do this thing called the waiting room, because we're all about winning the weight. That's our thing, right? That's our slogan, win the weight. We want to get back on the court. And we had Michael Phelps on yesterday. So far, we've had Russell Wilson, Peyton Manning, Mike Tyson, who was funny as hell, Chris Rock, Billy Crystal, and Michael Phelps yesterday, the swimmer. And Phelps talked about athletes as they get older, they either become results-oriented or they become process-oriented. But when you're talking about young athletes, what struck me, and I've always felt this, and Daryl will tell you, and Coach Skeeters will tell you, I'm always about the process. You have to get players to fall in love with the process of becoming good. Now, when you do that, because we did a lot of individual instruction, we put a great deal of emphasis on conditioning, we put a great deal of emphasis on nutrition, all the things that they have to do in order to become great players, and you hold them to it. Say, look, if you want to be good, here's what you got to do. And I saw it firsthand. The first guy I ever saw really go through that process and become a great player, the end result was Kerry Kittles, who was at Villanova when I got there. We got there in 1992. Kerry was signed by John Olive on the previous staff at Villanova. Bruce, I see Bruce down there. Bruce probably remember him. He knows John Olive pretty well, I'm sure. But Kerry came in, was not even the highest ranked guy in a class of 4. We had a kid named Eric Ebers. We had a young man named Roscoe Harris, who tragically passed away a few years ago, but he might have been the highest rated player. Kerry was a good athlete, great in the open court, but not a great shooter. And I watched him from his freshman year to his senior year transform from a really good freshman to a hell of a sophomore to Big East Player of the Year his junior year when the Big East was absolutely loaded. And it was a first-team All-American senior, 8th pick in the draft. And that's what sold me on the idea of working with these guys and becoming that person they can go to help them to understand what it takes to be good. And the guy who did that job was a guy named John Leonard. Some of you older coaches might remember him. John was a great shooting coach, and I used to watch him and Kerry. I worked with the bigs at Villanova. So I worked with Lawson and Cornegay, those guys. But I watched Kerry develop from a great athlete to an NBA player who played many years in the NBA and has created a great life for himself, which is ultimately what we're supposed to be doing. Your relationship with these players is so important. And this is the part where I say I might be a little bit hypocritical. And I think if I ever got back into college coaching, I know I'd be a much better coach for this time I spent in the NBA. There are times when you're working with guys and you're thinking you're doing the right thing and you're thinking they're doing the right thing, but they go out and they have a bad game. And it's so important that when they have a bad game that you move past it and don't take it personally. Because we all been there. We just lost a tough game, home game. We go back in the coach's locker room and like, can you believe how bad this dude played? He this and he's that. And we start running these players down. And trust me, that is going to impact your ability to coach them or your effectiveness coaching them, because that's going to be the back of your mind. So one of the things that I definitely recognize is that yes, we want success for them, and sometimes we're going to want it more than they want it. But the one thing I tell you as a coach, do not take it personally, and really get to know these guys and get to have a good pulse on what motivates them. I mentioned working for George Raveling in 89, 90 at the University of Southern California. And you want to talk about a guy that was way, way ahead of his time in so many different ways. One of the things he used to say to us all the time back in 89, when coaches were about, we got to run hard, we got to practice 3 hours a day and no days off and all this other stuff. He used to say to us all the time, once you got past the middle of the season, it's more important to coach their minds than their legs. And he was always talking about that. And we were talking the other day, I'm sure all of y'all are watching The Last Dance, right? The Jordan documentary. And he pointed out to me, he said, people talk about Phil Jackson. Obviously, he does get his just due. He's won, 11 NBA rings. But he said people have no idea how the genius of him was. He really understood his players. And he talked about the Rodman thing, him letting them go to Las Vegas. And I'm not suggesting that you let your players go to Las Vegas in the middle of the year, but there's a lot of truth in that. You could see how Phil Jackson developed relationships with his players. He knew all of them. He gave them books he thought that was pertinent to their personalities. He treated them as if, they were almost like his own child. I'm sure you saw in the documentary, he's sitting there in one film session, he's got his arm around Dennis Rodman, who I'm sure could test you a lot as a player, but Jackson was really ahead of his time. The other guy that I used to talk to, God rest his soul, was Coach Ben Jobe, who was a great, great coach, was one of the top scouts for the Knicks. He used to come by when I was at Georgia Tech because he was living in Montgomery, Alabama, and he'd watch our team. And it was always amazing to me, and I'm not going to tell you the player's name, but he could watch our practice for 2 hours, and we'd sit down and talk, and he'd tell me all about the kids. So we had a player one time who was getting a lot of interest from the NBA. And, after practice, sits down with me and says to me, he goes, "Where's this boy from?" And I tell him where he's from. He just shook his head. He goes, "He think you're a city kid, don't he?" I mean, he could read through kids in a minute. I remember going to recruit a kid, Jermichael Green, up in Montgomery, who ended up going to Alabama. And Coach Jobe came over to practice. We were watching him practice. And by the end of the practice, he's talking to Trey Brown, his high school coach. He goes, "This boy got a girlfriend?" Like that. Because he act like he tried to get ahead and go see his girlfriend. I mean, and Trey just started laughing. He's like, "Coach, you're right." I mean, I don't know how he did it, but Coach always talked about, Coach Jobe, that is, always talked about sleeping with your players. I'm like, "Coach, what do you mean sleep with your players?" He said, "When you go to bed at night, you need to be thinking about these kids, thinking about what makes them tick, what motivates them, and how can you help them to reach whatever goals that they've set for themselves." And so more than anything, I know X and O's are important, and we spend a lot of time trying to trick people, but the more I'm around this thing, and especially at the NBA level, the X and O's are important, but man, you better know how to manage your guys. I mean, the triangle offense has only worked for one coach in the NBA. I mean, and yes, he's had great players. Don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of damn good players in the NBA. And if the triangle offense, everything was, if that was the reason why the Bulls and then the Lakers ended up winning, guess what? A lot of other people would have won. But I think managing these players mentally, getting them in tip-top shape mentally, getting them in tip-top shape physically, getting them, to commit to the team's success, you're going to have a chance to win most nights. I don't think it's the type of thing where you sit around and say, hey, if we can just run this play or execute this defense, we're going to win. No. It's more and more I'm around it, more and more about getting these guys to be on board with you. Because remember now, just like you've had more people from when I started in 85 to today trying to get into these kids' lives, you have a lot of people on your campus around these players that are trying to tell them what they should be doing on the court, how they should be coaching. We always try to, hopefully we have some allies on campus, but there are going to be times, there are going to be people on your own campus within your program that are going to question what you're trying to tell these guys to do. And the relationship you build with them, I think, is going to really help insulate you from a lot of that stuff. So, as I said before, poor performance can happen. Don't personalize it, but really, really spend as much time as you can, especially in the gym, working with them or in your offices, talking to them about, how you see their development and how you can help them to reach whatever goals they have. I think with that, in this kind of a odd, transition, I think one of the things that will help everybody on this call is you got to defend the profession of coaching, college coaching. Being in the NBA now 4 years, being around a lot of scouts, going to games, because part of my responsibility is also go to NBA games. And you go about 2.5 hours early to talk to the other coaches, if you know them, other scouts, observe the workouts, because you want to see how a kid works and all that. College coaches have a bad reputation. Most people out there, whether they are people who are from search firms, whether they are college administrators, whether they are just general fans, absolutely members of the media, they run you guys down. All of you are unethical. You have no interest in seeing these kids graduate. You have no interest beyond the next game that you have to play in these kids' lives. And I'm find myself all the time defending college coaches. Obviously, as a former college coach, I'm very passionate about it. And anybody who's been down to Larry Scheidt's clinic down at University of Florida have seen me get into fights, and not fights, but, really some heated discussions with people who want to sit up there and talk about how you guys as a group break rules and how the players aren't interested in education. And honestly, I put a lot of that on you guys. A lot of fault falls on you guys because I don't think you guys speak up enough. And this is a true story. I was scouting a game at UCLA. It was Cal Berkeley versus UCLA at UCLA. And I'm sitting next to a guy, I didn't know who he was. We started talking back and forth. And I like tennis. My wife and I go to US Open tennis. We've been to the French Open. So he was getting ready to go to Australia, do the Australian Open. It wasn't this year, obviously. I think it was in 2018, maybe. Or it wasn't 19, probably was 18. So we get to talking, and he says, I've done one of your games. I said, really? And he introduced himself. He worked at CBS. He's a producer, and he's getting ready to go down to produce the tennis, the Australian Open. He no longer works at CBS. He goes, yeah, I did your Carolina game at Georgia Tech. So we get talking some more, and all of a sudden, I guess he gets kind of comfortable, and he just says to me, he goes, all college coaches cheat, right? I looked at him, I said, huh? I'm like trying to write my notes, watch, and we talking during timeouts. He goes, yeah. He goes, all you guys cheat. He goes, and that's what's wrong with college basketball. That's why I want to get out of it. I said, sir, you're wrong. I said, I don't want to discuss it right now. So maybe at halftime we'll talk about it. This dude's known me for like a half a basketball game. He turns and looks at me. He goes, and you probably cheated to get Chris Bosh too. I did that game. I was like, what? I said, you know what? Let me finish what I got to do. We'll talk at halftime. Now, I sat there at halftime, kind of like schooled him on, how the NCAA, how the rules are set up compared to other sports. And I'm going to get into that later, but it was really important to me. And now he and I have actually developed a good relationship. We email back and forth. We haven't had a chance to meet up in New York yet. We always say we're going to meet up in New York. He'll email me and I'll say, yeah. And then something will come up, or he'll email, or I email him. And so we haven't, but we communicate back and forth by email. And I think I've finally gotten to the point where he's at least even in that not everybody in college basketball is handing out a bag of money. Not every kid in playing college basketball is ignorant, don't want to go to class. I think I finally got him to that point. But I think you guys have to understand, when people rip your credibility apart, it's harder and harder to get the parents and the players to trust and believe you. And I'm not saying you got to get on a soapbox. Some of you don't have that type of platform. Some of you may not be able to do it, even if you do have the type of platform, because I can tell you personally, I know some of my outspoken ways with the media and the national media about how Black coaches in particular have been pushed out of the hiring process, or how players have been denied opportunities to get education. I know it's rubbed some administrators the wrong way, and it probably hurt me in terms of, with my jobs over the years. But at the same time, if somebody says something to you about college coaches, do not co-sign it. Just say, you shoot back with the facts about how good this game is and what this game has done to provide opportunities for you as a coach, for a lot of people. And I always tell them this, and Daryl's been with some of these recruiting visits. I recruited for 5 years at Villanova, highest level of basketball, college basketball. I recruited 11 years at Georgia Tech. We had some of the best players in the country: Bosh, Jack, Young, Iman Shumpert. We had 6 McDonald's All-American. Every single one of them was drafted. 5 of them in the first round, 1 in the second round. And I've had 3 times in my entire career recruiting at that level where somebody asked me for something. I had 1 instance at Villanova. and I had 2 instances at Georgia Tech. And Darryl was with me in one of them. I was asked for something on a home visit. I got up, I shook the dad's hand. I said, good luck, and I just kept on moving. I'm not going out there saying, if I lose a player, I'm not saying, hey, they cheated. I hate that. When I hear somebody say that so-and-so cheated to get a player, that's when I'm done with coaches. I don't want to hear what you got to say, because yes, I'm not naive. I know it goes. I know some things go on, but it's not to the level that it's portrayed in the media. And again, when we sit there in silence, and I said this, I stood up at Larry's thing in Florida, and I said in front of a bunch of people, administrators, every one of them. I said, listen, I said to the coaches, I said, when you guys sit there in silence, you are basically co-signing. You're saying it's okay. Your silence means that you're complicit with that thought that college coaches are cheating. And don't be afraid to defend the benefits of the game. I laugh right now, this thing going on. They're gonna potentially give kids the opportunity to transfer and be eligible right away, right? I got that right, Kevin?
Let's talk about that right there. It's supposed to be a vote supposed to take place here in May. Yeah. But most likely maybe not for this year, but it's definitely going to happen.
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And it's not about protecting you guys as coaches. Mm-hmm. To me, that's, if it's something that could benefit the players, I'm for it. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's a national writer, and he's talking about how it's going to be the Wild Wild West, this and that. I said, well, how about getting a degree? He's like, what do you mean? I'm a former college admissions counselor and academic advisor. I said, you do realize when you transfer, you're going to lose about 30-40% of your credits, right? And I said, so if a kid transfers, loses 30-40% of his credits, finishes the eligibility and moves on to play NBA if he's lucky, Europe, or what have you, I said, what are the chances of this kid getting a degree? He's like, oh, I never thought about that. And I actually, after I heard about the rule, I called the college president who was on the board of directors, and we started talking about it. And he's like, well, it's a student-athlete welfare thing. I said, student-athlete welfare? Hell, I mean, I said, you're making it harder for them to graduate from college. And I said, there's so many benefits from a kid getting a college degree as opposed to just playing 4 years of basketball and moving on with life. I mean, I think the last I checked, it's like $1 million to $1.5 million more in your over a lifetime of earnings if you have a college degree. And again, I just don't think coaches speak out enough. And again, I'm not saying everybody or anybody in this call has a platform to talk about it, but you need to talk to your administrators, your ADs, your fans, boosters, whatever, because trust me, the stuff they say behind your back, and it's been really open there for me now, it's amazing. And the other thing I love about my job right now, one of the things the Clippers want me to do is to maintain my contacts with AAU coaches. So any town I go into, I go to dinner and lunch with, guys from Team Takeover or Team Loaded, or, I'm down in Florida, I'll go meet with the each one teach one. I mean, I'm all up because, and I want to hear what they have to say. And I'll tell you one thing about that transfer rule. I digress a little bit. Almost every AAU coach I've talked to, because last week when I heard it, or two when I heard it, I started calling them to ask them what they thought. And every single one of them said it's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Nasir Little's high school coach told me, he said, the NCAA has been trying to find a way to destroy itself this whole time. He goes, I think they finally found it, Paul. And so those guys are also in your corner in terms of this rule. And I just say that, man, you guys got to defend the game. You guys cannot sit back and let people say things about you and your fellow coaches. If you got a problem with a coach, you go to that coach. If you're not going to go to that coach, don't say nothing. Like I said, I had 3 instances where somebody asked me for something. Once I got the kid, because I was so close with the kid, I was able to, get around the person that made the request. The other 2, I didn't say nothing. I didn't go to the coach. I didn't say anything. I watched one kid cut down the nets on a Monday night to win a national championship. Okay. So it's not like the kid was a bum. He was a hell of a player. But if I'm not going to say anything to that coach, I'm keeping it to myself. I'm not going to muddy the profession. I mean, this profession has been too good to a lot of us for us to muddy it. The next thing I want to talk about is understanding the NCAA rules and how it impacts you. I'm always amazed when I talk to people about what goes on in men's college basketball, especially with the stuff that gets coaches in trouble. Right now, the big thing is what? Agents being involved. And it would be fair of me to say that the enforcement of agents being involved with a player in your program is very selective. Is that a fair statement? Like some people we know their players have agents and the NCAA doesn't knock on their door, and other guys we know they're dealing with agents and the NCAA will take them down. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Well, you also have to understand something that I've been talking about for 15 years. We had a young man named Austin Jackson. Austin was a point guard at Denton Ryan High School. Pretty good player. Last 3 schools were Illinois, Oklahoma, Georgia Tech. He signed with us, I think, 2015. During the recruiting process, learned that he was a great baseball player. Anybody knows me knows I'm a huge baseball fan. I go to probably 15, 20 MLB games a year. So I immediately, part of my recruiting, I'd go watch him hit in the cage. I watch him play, high school baseball. Well, I also found out he had an agent because he was one of the top prospects in Baseball America. So I went to our compliance officer. I said, Austin has an agent. What do you want me to do? Do I stop recruiting? She said, is the agent for basketball or is the agent for baseball? I said, no, it's for baseball. She said, don't worry about it. I was like, what? What are you talking about? She says, yeah, as long as it's a baseball agent, you don't have to worry about it. So I started digging around, looking at other sports. Hockey, agents are prevalent all over the place. Kids can go through the draft process in hockey, get drafted, negotiate with a team. Then after they finish negotiating, then they decide whether they want to go to school or not. I'm not advocating those rules for college basketball. Actually, take that back. I would advocate it, but I'm not a college coach. But I think it would be a good idea because I think it would help you guys when those tripwires, I call them, would be taken out of play. Because I've watched guys get really dinged and their careers damaged because, one of their players is dealing with an agent or a coach had a conversation with an agent. I'll tell you another side story. When I was working at George Mason, I went down to Nats Park to see a game, and a good friend of mine was the PR director at the time for the Nats. His name's John Dever. And he got me down on the field to watch batting practice. And there was a baseball coach there, a college baseball coach from a big-time school. So we get to talking, and it was early season games. I'm going to say it's like May. It was right after the college baseball season ended. His team didn't make it to the College World Series. So I'm going to say late May, early June. So we started talking. I said, it was right about when the FBI stuff had happened. I said, what do you think of the FBI stuff with college basketball? He said, he goes, I can't believe there's so much of a problem. I said, what do you mean? He said, I drove from my campus about 3.5 hours to get to this game tonight. He said, the whole time on the phone, I'm talking to agents because I need to find out which of my juniors are going to forego their senior year of eligibility to go pro and which of my high school signees are going to forego their scholarship and go pro. So I need to know. He said, so I'm always in contact with. I said, well, how does that work? He said, it is what it is. He said that, the best agents are the ones that end up going, they end up getting the best players. When I was at Tech, our team, the Georgia Tech baseball team, had a guy, Mark Teixeira. I'm sure you all know if you follow baseball. And Teixeira had Scott Boras. After his senior year of high school, he was drafted by the Red Sox, offered $1.5 million. Boras told him to turn it down. He went to Georgia Tech. He had to stay for 3 years. He got $9.8 million after he graduated or after his third year of eligibility at Tech. So understand the rules, get engaged with how the rules are made, and get engaged with the legislative process because trust me when I tell you, it's only going to help you because some of the rules that are out there right now for especially the Division I level, to me, unless somebody sits down and talks some common sense into the NCAA or at least bring it to their attention, you're leaving yourself open to a lot of tripwires that really can derail a lot of careers. One of the other things that Coach Raveling always talked about, again, you talk about a guy that was clearly ahead of his time. Again, I worked for him in 89, 90. And even back then he was saying, if you do something well, let people know about it because people will forget. And he always used to tell us, whether it was, he told Coach Keener, who worked for him, Scott Howard, who's a scout for the Nuggets. He would always tell us as the younger coaches, we had Brian Hamill, who now works for the Pumps out in LA, and Charlie Parker, who's coaching basketball in Taiwan. But he always told the younger coaches, if you guys are doing something well, don't be afraid to talk about it. Now, a lot of us came up at a time when you were told not to be a self-promoter, but Coach's thing was, you don't have to brag about it, but you can certainly put yourself in positions where you can talk about your record. You know, you have social media now that you can use. And don't use it in a braggadocious way, but if you do something well, or if you become an expert in an area of the game, talk about it. Put out something on social media, put out plays, what have you, to let people know that you are willing, that you know something about the game. If your team is having a great year, put it out there. Volunteer to speak at coaches clinics, volunteer to speak at local, you know, youth groups or anything like that, booster groups. Anytime you can get out there and recite your resume and the things that you've accomplished, trust me, you don't know who's in the audience. It is amazing the stories I've heard over my time in the business. Again, going back to 85 as a high school coach, where somebody got a job because they spoke at some place and somebody saw them and thought they were really good. I got my job at Georgia Tech because I met a guy named Ron Adams, who was assistant coach of the 76ers, and he came and watched practice one day, and Steve let me run part of the practice. He liked what I was doing. He liked how I was presenting, and we became friends. And then from there, you know, when the Georgia Tech job came open, they were looking for somebody, and he threw my name to the AD, and that's how I ended up there. If I didn't know Ron Adams, and if I wasn't out there talking to him about the game of basketball, he would not have known about me. And so don't be afraid to speak up about, you know, the things that put yourself in a position, I say, to kind of speak up about the things that you've accomplished. And with that, become an expert in some part of the game. That's something that Coach Ravlin always talked about. His thing was rebounding. He actually wrote 2 books on rebounding. The thing that I always spoke about when I did clinics, I always talked about transition offense and playing up-tempo offense from fast break to secondary break, how you can flow into that type of stuff. And when I was doing a lot more of that stuff, it was amazing how I remember one time talking to Tony Bennett, and I spoke one time at Penn State, and his dad, Dick Bennett, was speaking after me. And I remember seeing Tony, I can't remember where, he might have been at Washington State at the time, and I was at Georgia Tech, and he came over to me and said, "Hey, my dad really enjoyed your lecture about transition offense." So you just don't know where these things are going to go in terms of when you put yourself out there to speak and again, talk about the things that you know and the expertise that you're developing. And again, do not be afraid to talk about your resume. And I can speak personally to this. I look around college basketball today, and I can't say that I'm bitter, but I definitely do. There are times when I get frustrated. I look and go like, how in the world can that person have a job? And I look at my resume now. And Daryl, I'm probably as guilty as anybody, but Daryl, even, you know, when he referenced, like, you're just going to gloss over the national championship. But again, I was raised in a business a different way. Don't be that way. Talk about what you've done. You know, in our time at Tech, again, we had 5 NCAAs, 1 NIT. Bobby was there 19 years. He had 10 NCAAs in 19 years. I had 5 NCAAs in 11 years. And again, I talked at the beginning about the first-round draft picks, all the things we did. And even I can compare to other places I've left. I've seen what's gone on when I was there and what's gone on after I'm gone. I think part of my problem has been not pushing out there the information that can maybe change the public perception of what's going on. So, Kevin, I tell you, I wanted to kind of open up for questions.
Yes.
I think I've spoken way too long already. I'd love to hear what you guys are saying, and I'd love to interact with some of your questions.
Well, first and foremost, Paul, you didn't speak too long, not at all. I've taken a great deal of notes. I see everybody else taking a great deal of notes. But we are going to open this up right now to questions. Please remember, we talked about this. The most important thing we can do is in these type of situations is to share. You know, the more we share, we all get better. So anybody have a question, just unmute yourself, ask your question, and then let's enjoy it. Let's just enjoy this time.
I'm gonna lean in.
I got a question.
Okay.
Ski, I'm gonna let you go ahead. Is that Ski?
Introduce yourself, and then ask the question.
Thanks, Mo. This is Coach Hewitt. This is Eric Skeeters. Listen, and I've been dying to get that article, Mark, to share and Scott Bars from you for years, since I seen it in your office that year at George Mason. But how is it that rule can be implemented in basketball? Why isn't it in basketball? And what do you think we need to do as college coaches to try to make that change? Because it's already, I talk about all the time, what volleyball, soccer, and other sports are allowed to do with quote-unquote club sports. They're allowed to coach, recruit, and profit from coach, which is AAU for us. right?
Sure.
So, and I say in compliance meeting, we had these all staff meetings, that same manual we all work out of, right? That same light blue manual we get every year. We got to take the test on. They got different portions for different sports. But why is it allowable in baseball, and then obviously it's a federal offense in basketball? In your years' experience, and obviously you dealt with it firsthand, how can that be implemented in basketball?
Yeah, and you're being literal when you say federal offense. I mean, I had 2 friends that went to jail over some nonsense, like that. I think it's got to be a ground up thing, meaning that you've got to get to know your president, your AD. You got to let them understand, because again, they don't know the rules. What I have found with the NCAA legislative process is they always will tell you that the presidents and the ADs vote for stuff, or particularly the presidents. What happens, Skeet, is there's personnel at the NCAA who want to see things done a certain way. And let's just say their cultural background is different from the players that are playing the game. Okay, I'll just keep it at that. And so what happens is the president walks in there, whether it's some meeting and they got to make some votes, and they're basically told, here's the best thing. I was on the NABC board for 11 years. I used to go to the meetings all the time. And a lot of what you guys are dealing with as college coaches, certainly not as assistants, but definitely as head coaches, you have a lot of petty jealousy and a lot of there's a great deficit of trust. They don't trust college basketball coaches. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I think coaches are the main reason. They are very quick. Nobody plays the victim better than a college basketball coach who lost to recruit. They always, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. So that has created an opportunity for NCAA staff to push the presidents in a certain direction as far as how to vote. I talked about early on about how the Clippers have perfect alignment in our organization. That's why every decision we make, we all feel good about it. It's never going to be perfect, but we feel good about it, and so far they've been good. You got to have perfect alignment with your president, your AD on down, and let that president know, even if it's having lunch, once a month, having breakfast once a month, do it on his schedule or her schedule. But you got to let them know what you're dealing with. But it's got to be a system-wide deal. There are some coaches out there who love it just the way they are because they know they're never going to get that knock on their door. That's just the reality of it. But I think you guys got to start on your campus, and not with the compliance director, ADs and presidents.
Mojo.
What about with the NABC?
I'm sorry?
And the second part is, what about the people like our Coaches Association, NABC, which obviously has a voice and a direct line to the powers that be. How is it that we can get them, Jim Haney on down, to make that change?
Well, Jim is retiring, and actually they're interviewing. And one of the things that I told somebody, asked me about it, I said, whoever they hired, that person can't be afraid to speak out and defend coaches. I think for too many years, you have not had somebody defend you. So, Mojo, go ahead, man.
Coach, what's going on, man? It's
good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in, staying out of Dodge, man. But I appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this. I think I can speak for everyone when I say they're taking a ton of notes and gaining taking a bunch of nuggets from your talk. But I want to ask you this question. Mm-hmm. You and I have spoken in the past about different things, and I've always taken what you said very seriously. I've always wanted to ask you this. You've been at a handful of different schools, have dealt with different administrations.
Yep.
What would you tell a new head coach now, given your experience, and how to deal with your administration not to ensure success, but to try to give yourself a little bit of a head start?
You're just trying to give yourself a chance. And I think if there was one area that I was kind of ignorant to, I was very, very spoiled. And when I got the head job at Siena, I had a great AD, John D'Argenio, who's still there, who's always about working for coaches. When I got the job at Georgia Tech, I had a great athletic director, Dave Brain, who always had my back. After that, things got tricky. I got to George Mason. I had Tom O'Connor there. We were doing great. They made a change. Things got really tricky. And what I tell coaches now is, don't do like I did. Don't be naive. Manage your career. ADs don't have records for a reason because they know they can hide forever. And I know I see Dwayne on the call. I'll tell this story because this guy is a very close friend. And I think the world of Cliff Warren. Cliff Warren was fired at University of Jacksonville after he was the all-time leading head coach, the winning coach.
Yep.
he had signed the kid, was it Jalen Adams? They ended up going to St. Bonaventure. Was A-10 player of the year, Simpkins? Was
That's
he A-10?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he also had a kid named Timmy Bond, who is knocking back and forth between the G League team for the Houston Rockets and the big club. So now we got two guys there, Timmy Bond and Jalen Adams, that were signed, sealed, and delivered to go to Jacksonville when Cliff got fired. And I don't know who the coach of Jacksonville is. I wish him the best. I am for coaches. Don't ever forget that. I'm about coaches having success, having long careers, and being given a chance. But the reality is Cliff was fired by an athletic director who doesn't know the game of basketball at all. Could you imagine Jalen Adams and Timmy Bond? And there was a third kid that was on his way visiting, a kid named Malik Yarborough, who's at Illinois State now, was going to visit Jacksonville. So I say all that to tell you guys, when you're applying for a job, you got to do your homework on the AD. When a new AD's coming in, you got to know things about him. And don't be afraid to go to your president and speak up. It may burn you in the long run, but trust me, if you see trouble coming down the pike, you have to do it and manage your career. I was very naive. My agent was telling me things when this change was getting ready to happen to George Mason, telling me to go in and demand a contract extension. You guys moved from the CAA. He was telling me, my people don't realize, but we won 24 games and 22 games my first 2 years at George Mason. We beat Virginia. We beat VCU. We beat Houston. We went to the finals of the CBI. Not a great tournament. We still went to the finals and lost in the last game. Okay? Had some damn good wins in those first 2 years. Then we go to the A-10 where they had 6 teams that first year go to the NCAA tournament. Right, Skeet? All right? And 4 teams the next year. And we got fired. And, you know, we were about to have the thing going because the A-10 has, I don't think anybody would disagree, it's come back to the pack a little bit. All right?
Yeah.
And we had some players in there that, you know, Trey Porter ended up in Nevada, starting for the Nevada team that was ranked. Isaiah Jackson was at Providence. Eric Lockett had a real good run down to Florida International, then went to NC State. So my point to you all is, do not be naive. Look at your AD's record. See if you know something about basketball. Is there somebody in his background that you know that can help you to build a relationship with them? Because when they come in, because when that guy came in at Mason, he had one mission and one mission in mind. And I'm not going to bore you with the details, was to fire me. And the actions he took from the day he got on the ground, there were things that he did. Some of you know the story, some of you don't. I'm not going to bore you. He spent 7.5 months trying to find a way to fire me with cause. And he didn't find any way, then he ended up firing me after the year. And you know what? That's his right. As a coach, you serve at their pleasure. That's the reality of it. So I'm a big boy. I got fired. But I'm just telling y'all, do not be naive. Scout your AD the way you would scout an opponent. Scout your president the way you would scout an opponent. And don't put your career, because especially, I'll say it straight out, especially for black coaches, it's really hard for us to get a second chance. Yeah. I think you will get a second chance because I think you're a damn good coach. I've watched you practice. I love how you guys practice. Don't ever forget, obviously, the name of the game is recruiting. Okay, getting good players and treating them great. But do not be naive about who you go to work for. Don't take it for granted.
Manny Bloom.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing well, Manny.
Good. Apologize. I've been looking 2 screens here. They're doing Howard Garfinkel's tribute right now.
Oh, wow. I don't blame you. I work 5-star.
Yeah, I'm a big 5-star guy, so I did it for about 20 years. But my question was, and I've been listening on and off about, so in the cutthroat business, and obviously at the level you're at and Coach Sutton's at, of not knowing really maybe who your friends are and the relationships that you build and who you can trust. What would be your best advice to young coaches looking for mentorship opportunities, whether to be mentored or to mentor as they grow?
Well, find people that you admire and you think they do it the right way and you like them. Because again, I'm gonna tell you, the majority of the guys out there are doing it the right way. And again, being on this side of it, these AU coaches, they're an open book to me. They tell me what's going on. The high school coaches, they're an open book because I'm in the NBA. And find guys and write to them. Like I wrote to George Raffling. I wrote to John Thompson. And, you know, John Thompson never allowed anybody to practice, but I wrote them, asked them to come to practice. And Craig Eschrick, he ended up writing me back and said, hey, you know, you can't come to practice, but since you're in town, come by, we'll have lunch and talk basketball. Well, Craig Eschrick and John Thompson are the ones that put me in touch with George Raffling. I worked their camp based on that meeting. And then after working their camp for 4 years, I started working at camp in 86. It was summer of 86 when I first started working at camp. And then in summer of 89, or it was 3 years, I ended up going over to, actually, 4 years, because 86, 87, 88, and 89 summers I worked camp. Then 89, fall of 89, I went to work for Coach Raven. But write them, express an interest. And back then it was a letter and a stamp. Now it can be an email. Certainly when you're on the road, you see somebody walk up to them. I think you'll be surprised that, how many people would be welcoming and try to do what they can to help you. But, we all got egos. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I think you can help me, it does also appeal to the ego. But reach out to those people.
Russ.
Thank you, Coach.
Coach Hewitt, Russ Williamson, Tennessee State. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Russ. How you doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Got a X and O question for you.
Yes.
From being, in the ACC and then now seeing things in the NBA, what are some things you would do different offensively coming back to college?
Simpler is better. Simpler is better. And when I was at Siena, we kept it really simple. Early on at Georgia Tech, we kept it simple. Towards the end, I started adding more and more plays. And what I watch over the years is, I remember when I first got to the ACC, the stuff that Duke was running. And by the time I got done, it was like angle ball screens. It was, lift action where you drove and lift the guy out of the corner. But there's six offensive principles that I would make a part of what I do. And one of them, baseline drive spots. Anytime drive baseline, make sure guys get to the spots. They know it's there. And from there, if you become consistent at it, they're going to be counters. Middle drive spots, again, and Skeet knows these things. We did these religiously. Darryl will tell you in practice, there were times in breakdowns in practice where beginning practice, but that'll be part of our warm-up drill. It works on passing. It creates familiarity for the players to know when they're driving in to help, they know where their outlets are going to be. The other thing is post, feed, and cut action. Again, just simple stuff that I would incorporate in. I don't care what you run, throw it in the post and work on screening at the elbows, slipping screens at the elbows, faking to the elbow and cutting off the baseline, especially if the big man has caught the ball off the block and there's room for that cut. So post, feed, and cut action, that goes back to, I learned that from a guy named Gordy Chiesa, who used to work for the Utah Jazz, and Stockton and Hornacek were the masters at. I was studying the post, feed, and cut action when I was an assistant coach at Villanova, and I did it when I was at Siena. We didn't do it at Villanova, but we did it at Siena. We did it at Georgia Tech. And again, those are things I got away from. Something that I did add towards the end of Georgia Tech, every offense, or you should have a way to create an isolation. If you have that bad matchup, you got to find a way to create an isolation. A very simple way to do it is kind of like the Princeton 2-3 set, two guards high, forwards in the center on a nail, and just make a guard-to-guard pass, exchange guard and forward, and then throw it back to the guard spot, hit the forward spot, and then the other four guys just go away. You ever watch? I'll tell you who does it now. We did it with Shumpert a lot at Georgia Tech. I would do it sometimes with Will Bynum, but I'll tell you who does it a lot is Louisville. If you watch Chris Mack, they do a great job with that. Where they start in the Princeton set, make a guard-to-guard pass, exchange guard and forward, and then end up on the wing. And then the other four guys that just do some dummy action away. So that's something I think that's good. The two players I think I did a poor job coaching when I was at Georgia Tech. One of them was Chris Bosh, and Skeet and Darryl have heard me tell this story. He was so young and so thin, I didn't put as much on him as possible. I should have given him more responsibilities. I just thought he's a young kid who had a future. What if you put too much on him, you kind of break his confidence? Well, I was wrong. He was good enough to take anything. But the other guy is Anthony Morrow. And I would run wide pin downs to death if I came back today. I watch you guys play now. I go out to about, I must see about 100 to 125 games a year, college games. Then I see another 12 to 20 NBA games, not to mention what I watch on film that I have to go through. I see more East-West offense to the point where, like, my eyes are like, come on, man. Like, can we get some North-South action going? And so wide pin downs, when we had Anthony Moore, I don't know how to do this, but I wish I could pull up an edit I have. I still have an edit of Anthony Morrow when we did run wide pin downs because, again, it's an action that puts so much stress on the defense when you have a good shooter coming out of the corner, possibly come to the elbow, and a big man slip into the basket. It puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the defense. Kerry Kittles and I are still really good friends. And anytime we watch basketball games, especially college basketball games together, I could count it down when he's going to start complaining about how many ball screens college coaches run. He's like, do these damn guys know that not everybody can run a damn ball screen? I played in the NBA 12 years, and I can't run a damn ball screen. He goes, we let Jason Kidd run the ball screen. We let Marbury run the ball screen. I'm so tired of watching these college. And I started watching it. I'm like, you know what? Kerry, you're right. Because I remember running a bunch of ball screen continuity. And basically what it is, you run the time off the clock. And you're not putting as much pressure on the defense because not everybody can run a ball screen. And it's true. And even when you watch in the NBA, not everybody can run a ball screen. And these guys are the best players. Like, let me tell you one thing I learned about being around the NBA. You got to be smart to play this game. There are very, very few, if any, players with bad basketball IQs in the NBA. These dudes know the game. And again, even for them. So I would get into more wide ball screen. And the last thing, I would do some horns action. I think horns action, especially hitting the guy at the elbow and cutting off of him and making some play off of that. But I guarantee you'll be surprised how many times if you're set up in a horns action, hit a guy at the elbow and chase the ball, come off and get a handoff, I guarantee that's good for a couple of layups every couple of games. So, but those are the things stuff that puts pressure on the defense and builds familiarity with the players.
GJ Kissel.
Thanks, Kevin. Coach, thanks for doing this. We appreciate it. This
no problem.
GJ Kissel from Good Counsel High School in WCAC.
Yep, no well.
So, my question is actually kind of a broader scope, and obviously it applies today with what we're all going through and dealing with things being shut down. So I was curious as to what you think the impact of what we're going through at a variety of levels will be. And when I ask that, so, you're dealing with it and you're trying to win the weight, right? Yeah. And then Kay Sutton and I talked extensively about this and what that level's doing. I know what we're doing with our guys, and then even extrapolated out to, I've got a turning 9-year-old son that's like starting to get into the circuit and that kind of stuff and what they're doing. And so what do you think the net impact is going to be as we work our way through this, through the pandemic? Because, so for example, everybody knows and loves players from Prince George's County, right? Yep. Prince George's County has removed all, field goals, all basketball from, so no kids that we have that live in Prince George's County can even shoot the basketball. So, but then you've got other states that are, getting back to their new normal and people are able to do things. So what do you think the net impact at the variety of levels is going to be?
Well, I mean, the net impact is going to be whatever we allow it to be. It could be catastrophic. It's not going to be, there's not going to be a negative, like a flat impact, a neutral impact. And so I can tell you what we've done at the Clippers. We are in constant contact with the players. As a matter of fact, we had a discussion with some of our staff, like, are we over communicating? And I was like, absolutely not. Because this mental health thing is really important. We had Michael Phelps on yesterday, and he's been very public about his battle with anxiety and depression. And just when he was 14 years old, he said on our call yesterday, I didn't want to be alive. And so you have an opportunity to get closer to these players. And again, the mental side of it, I go back to Coach Rathman always said, like, coach their minds. So you got a chance to reach them and even become closer because they are going through a tough time. Some of them are cool with it and they understand it, but spend a lot of time talking to them. Give them exercises. What's wrong with asking them to watch a game and write a scout report, an NBA game, a college game, whatever. There's so many games on TV now. They can watch so many things. They all have their phones. They can pull up stuff on YouTube. Like you got to stay engaged with them. Like we're doing this win the weight thing. We do this thing called the waiting room where we have everybody coming on. Everybody in our organization is on it. I always look at the number at the bottom, at the Zoom thing, and it's always between 90 and 95 people on these calls. And we've done 6 of them, I think, 6 or 7 of them now. So you have a chance to engage with them in a way that you would not have if you were practicing. Okay, so
right.
The net can be a tremendous positive. The net can be having a discussion about, let's say you give him a Clipper game and talk about Kawhi Leonard, and you understand where he came from. And I have on my computer still, I have a edit where Kawhi Leonard shooting the basketball at San Diego State and shooting the ball in the NBA. Just show them what goes into being a good player. But you got to be innovative. You got to be engaged. And then, like I said, the mental health thing is huge. You need to get down and find out, okay, how are you doing with this? Are you okay? Certainly, or do you feel safe? Do you have food?
Right.
You feel like, when you're in your home at night, it's a place where it allows you to continue to grow as a person. Because again, you have an opportunity, and this will come as no surprise to anybody in this state. The guy that's been the most engaged for the LA Clippers in terms of believing the whole thing is winning the weight is, guess who? Who's the guy you think is most engaged? Kawhi Leonard. They said,
Right.
I talked to Doc, I talked to Lawrence about him. They said he has been unbelievable because they do Zoom workouts. So we've sent equipment to there, and obviously we have the money to do it. And we sent equipment to his house, and he pops up on Zoom and does his workout. And the reports are, they said, this dude is like, he's unbelievable how hard he's working. And one thing, and Doc actually said in the interview 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, like last month, he said, I know one guy is going to be ready when he comes back, and that's Kawhi. And so this is a way to kind of motivate them, to let them really start thinking about their game and how they can get better. But I think it's up to us as coaches. Like I said, my very first thing I said, you guys have a lot of power, man. You have a lot of power. Respect that power and put it to work.
And we don't take up too much more of Paul's time, but Paul, we got 3.
Kevin, this is great therapy for me. You kidding me, man?
Okay, well, we got 3 more. We got 3 more questions.
Sure.
Okay? And then we're gonna bring it all to a close. Okay, so we're gonna go with Mike Lopez, please.
Coach, how you doing?
Good,
Appreciate
Mike. How you
your
doing?
time.
No problem.
Good. I'm a high school coach here in San Antonio, Texas, and I host a podcast called Creative Coaching. And one of the main topics I talk about a lot here, again, is off of your mental health. Mentioning that is so important, I think.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to hear from you how important or what emphasis is played. Is that played there in the NBA, and how can we do it at the lower levels to the degree that, we're not experts, but, just how important should it be for us overall?
It should be very important. And I'll, again, in all frankness and transparency, I didn't know how important it was when I was a college coach, but it's very, very important. Just today I got a call from one of my former players thanking me for, helping him to achieve his goals. And I didn't realize it by doing like individual instruction and player development. That's how we were creating our bond. But that's the only way I knew how to create that bond. Like I see Simpkins on there, and I've watched him do individual workouts. He's a great individual instruction coach. I watch him do stuff with players. And I'm sure those guys that he gets in the gym with, those guys that are hungry for it, they're going to be calling him in a few years and say, Coach, I really appreciate the time you spent. But what I would say is you got to find different ways to meet them and on where they're comfortable. The other thing, like we have the resources to hire a mental coach, if you will. We have a psychologist that's there, and she's there whenever they want to just want to sit down and talk. And she's got to be available, because it's not easy to get some of these guys to kind of open up. But it's becoming more and more accepted in the NBA because they see how it translates to better performance. So what I would say is I don't know if there are any resources in the San Antonio area of people that are willing to come in and speak and vet that person. You don't want somebody who's going to be an amateur coach. We got enough amateur coaches out there. But vet that person. But again, I'm telling you, man, y'all don't understand how much power you got as coaches, the influence you have on these guys. But find out what's the middle ground where you reach them. I talked to Chris today, Chris Boshan, because I was asking him about what he thinks of this new G League thing. So he called me back and we were talking. And we started talking about, he was joking about how crazy I was, how hard I was on them. And I could tell in his voice, like, yeah, it was cool basketball-wise, coach, but I could just tell, like, yo, you didn't have to be all that now. And so, again, if I got back into it, I would try to find more bridges to cross to, or at least to meet them in a place where it can help them.
Thank you, Coach.
Next question, Daryl LeBerry.
Coach, I just, me and you've had a bunch of conversations about some things that I think could be beneficial to the guys listening. So one of the things is when you go out and you observe practice, or you get there early and you talk to the coaches about games, can you give the guys some nuggets on what you value as a good assistant and also a good coaching staff, what makes a good culture with a coaching staff? And then the second thing is what you truly value in players, so that these guys can go back and give this information and educate the guys on what pro scouts are truly looking for, because I think they have a lot of misinformation on that topic.
Yeah.
Great question.
Great question. I'm going to start with the second part about what we're looking for. There are going to be two guys on every NBA team that are going to be the leading scorers, going to get the shots at the end of the game. And guess what? There is nobody I saw in college basketball over certainly the last 2 years, I would say I'm going to give the ball to. So I'm looking for guys that understand their role and how they can bring value to the team. So I'm watching them. Certainly I get to the games. I saw Lamont's on here. I get to a game, and Kevin, you see me, I get to a game an hour and a half, 2 hours before. Like, I'm there before the kids get on the court. I want to see who gets on the court first. And this kind of ties into your question about assistant coaches. So I want to know who's on the court first. I'm also looking to see which assistant coaches that the guys are going to gravitate to and what kind of routine they have. So I'm looking for guys that are going to get out there and work. Obviously, I'm evaluating their skill level and trying to figure out, project, like, in 3 years, can that guy be a better shooter? Does he have the form, the footwork? Does he have the work ethic and concentration? It doesn't always work, because there have been guys. I saw one guy I thought was silly as hell. It's turned out to be a pretty good player, pretty good NBA player, John Collins. In pregame warmups, he was as silly as can be. But then when the game started, he was pretty good. But so, I'm looking for guys that I think that are going to be willing to work. The other thing that's really important to me is lateral movement. Can a guy move laterally? Can he defend? Does a guy talk and communicate? Because nothing frustrates these players more than the NBA players, that is, when a guy comes in, they don't talk. I mean, talking is huge. It is absolutely huge. And I'm kind of just coming off the top of my head here, Dal, but the other thing is I'm still looking at guys, how they come out of games. Like, that's huge for me. I've written guys off because, he's not going to fly in our locker room. We have a very unique locker room. Lou Williams kind of runs it. Again, I haven't been in there because that's their area, in the coaches area, but talking to our coaches, Lou runs it, and Pat Beverly is the enforcer. There was a kid last year that he's no longer with the Clippers. He walked in the locker room like after a December game in the 18-19 season, and coming there because he was new to the team, complaining about shots. And Lou Williams just stood up and said, no, we don't do that around here. Knock that off. And they said the guy jumped in line, he did what he was supposed to do, and within a month he was cut from the team. But how you come out of that game is still important to me. We have discussions right now on Zoom at least once a week talking about players, and there are players that I say will get drafted in the first round, but that player does not live up to the Clipper characteristics that Lawrence Frank and Doc Rivers have set out for us. Guys that are tough, hard-nosed, smart basketball players, unselfish. Listen, I'm not crazy. Talent is talent, but I've also seen really talented teams and talented players cause you to lose. We're just fortunate that the best player on our team is by far the hardest worker. As far as the assistant coaches, I want to see how engaged you are with helping these guys get better. I want to see what your relationship's like with these players. And I am going to talk to you. Most of you guys that I know, and I've talked to you about your players before, you know the type of questions we're trying to get out of you. But to me, if like, the greatest compliment I ever got as a coach, or one of the greatest compliments I ever got as a coach, in '95, we won the Big East championship. and George Raveling was doing the color for the studio work for CBS. And we worked hard on our jump hooks at Villanova. Like, that was our thing. Chuck Cornegay, Jason Lawson, a kid named Ron Wilson from North Carolina. And I remember, like, watching the tape back then. You had the VCR tapes, doing my game review, and I watched the halftime. And Coach Raveling talked about how the Villanova big guys shot the best jump hooks of anybody in America. And that's all I needed to hear. I'm like, okay, what I'm doing is working. So I'm looking at guys and how are they working with these guys? Are they just out there jacking around, or are they specifically working on things?
Orlando Vandross, University of Virginia.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Actually, Orlando, we're all doing well.
Well, Kev, appreciate you having me on. And Paul, I wanted to pick your brain because as you was talking, I was thinking about, like, everyone talks about culture and, you know, how they develop an atmosphere or an environment of culture. And you was talking about your time at Siena to the time you went to Georgia Tech. How did you foster buy-in or a culture there? And then how would you do that now that you have been removed to the game? And if you come back, how would you foster that? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And at Siena, it was different. The players, again, and it goes back to what I said at the very beginning, it goes back to they want to know that they're valued. And so just something as simple as getting Nike to give us a team package of sneakers, sweats, and gym bags, that really started it. Individual instruction is huge. Skeet will tell you that. Daryl will tell you that. I thought individual instruction was unbelievably important because it gave us a chance to talk to the kids in a group of 2 or 3 working on things that were important to them, which was their development. If I had to add to it, one of the things I did not do a good job of is to create like a record. By that, I mean, we had shooting drills that we did from day 1 at Georgia Tech to year 11. I should have kept records of that stuff and put it up in the locker room for guys to shoot at, you know, just to keep the thing alive. I would absolutely positively bring back former players more often to talk to these players. Like Daryl would tell you, my first year at Tech, we won at Kentucky. We beat Kentucky in a neutral site game. We won at UCLA. And those former players, Kenny Anderson and guys who were in the NBA, they were calling us back, congratulating. They were excited because they were winning bets and whatnot with their, with their teammates in the NBA. I remember Kenny telling me he won a bet off of Rick Pitino when we beat Kentucky at the Phillips Arena. And so I would absolutely positively bring more guys back to talk to them and how important what they're doing is to the former players. But I can't overestimate, and I don't want to short sell it. The other part is, again, get to know the players better. I go back to Coach Jobe talking about, I don't think I spent enough time when I was away from the gym thinking about how I could connect with a guy. And again, part of it was the era I came up in. I didn't think about that stuff as much. And part of it, quite frankly, I got busy doing a lot of stuff. I was getting pulled in a lot of different directions, especially after the Final Four. Now, we were having pretty decent success, but not what it could have been if I had maintained a close relationship with those players. But I think, like I said, treating them first class. Like when we got to Georgia Tech, we definitely set the expectations. I heard Peyton Manning say something on one of our calls, and I'm glad you asked this question because it reminded me, we asked a similar question about him and Tony Dungy, and he said Tony Dungy didn't have a lot of rules. He had a sign up in the locker room and said, expectations and execution, no excuses, no explanations. And so fewer rules, higher expectations. If I had to come back tomorrow, if I got a job tomorrow, the first thing I would do would be to meet with the team, which I would always do, but lay out to them, here are my expectations for you. And again, quantify it. I expect you to get a 3.0, at least strive for it. I expect you to meet this weight requirement. I expect you to meet this shooting requirement. Lay it out for them so they understand exactly what you're looking for. I tell people all the time, I'll say it to you guys, say it to you now, you're on the air on this call. Your program and Florida State, to me, you guys have the best chance to win games when you don't have high talent level because of what you're talking about. Like, you've never been to Florida State practice. Everyone else should go see Florida State practice. Unbelievable. Passionate, Those kids enjoy playing for each other. It's enthusiastic. Never been a bad Florida State practice. And watching you guys practice, I remember telling Chris Mooney, I saw them, they played Alabama. I went to their game, and he was asking me about who do I like, this and that. And I said, I know Tony and them guys are struggling right now. I said, but they're going to be good. I said, why do you say that? I said, they all get it. They all understand what they're supposed to do. And that's why, like, some of your players, they may not come into your program with a high ranking or what have you, but you know they're going to be pros. I'm telling you right now, your man DeAndre Hunter made me a star, because the first day I got on the job, I said, y'all watch, this dude's going to be good. And he ended up being like the 5th pick in the draft. And I think a lot of it has to do with how you guys do things. I think you guys in Florida State, by far, in my opinion, the 2 most impressive that I've seen in the 4 years I've been doing this job.
Hey, Orlando Vandross, Eric Skeeters would like to thank you for breaking DeAndre's wrists.
Exactly.
He liked to.
No doubt about it. If you're the assistant coach and hit him with the pad in practice, or Kyle Getter, or whoever it was, I thank my family. Thanks you.
So, let me tell you,
real quick before we
it
go to
doesn't happen if he plays.
Hey man, this was a great conversation unto that point, man. I mean, this is going south.
Hey, before we go to the next question,
it's a great. No. Orlando, you got the ring.
There you go.
The ring, bro.
How about that?
So you good, and I'm signing off.
Hey, before we go to the next question, he asked me, he said, hey, can we beat Virginia? I said, well, now that DeAndre just broke his wrist, you might have a chance. Like that. He was like, he's that good? I said, yeah, he's that good.
Hey, did you guys play at Miami that year? That year when y'all lost to
UMBC? Yes, we played
that. Okay, so I was at that game, and I was talking to LaFonso Ellis before the game. It was the ESPN game, and LaFonso did the game. And you guys were bringing DeAndre off the bench, right, at that time?
I believe so.
So I told him, I said, my nickname for him that year was the in case of emergency guy. That's exactly what it was. And then, I mean, unfortunately, again, as Skeet said, congratulations, y'all won the ring. But when y'all lost that game, I texted LaFonso. I said, yep, the in case of emergency guy wasn't there.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. Everything I'm saying is important, but the bottom line is you got to have great players. Have to have great players. Go ahead, Skeet. Next.
Hey, next question, Jamar Betts, please.
Coach Hewitt, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jamar. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You and I met years ago. I coach here at Washington, D.C. area, the Episcopal High School, and I also coach AAU. Yep. And I also coach with Team Durant here. So next time you come in town, you come take one of us out to lunch too.
It's a bet. Definitely. I'd do it.
I'm kidding with you. I have a
No, I'm serious. We're going to have lunch.
Okay, for sure. I have a question, though. And I earlier in the talk, there was a question, or there was a segment on transfers.
Yeah.
And I think to me, where it looks like the transfer market is really hurting like the mid-major, low-major guys in college basketball. Yeah. Obviously, if a guy, especially if a freshman or sophomore comes in, does extremely well, he's looking to move up to, a high major school. What is the NBA's take on that? How do they view those guys, when you go and do your background and see that he's transferred and he's averaged, 18 at a certain school, but then goes to like a Kentucky and averages 9? How do you, differentiate and decipher that?
The numbers don't lie. I mean, the percentages of guys that have gotten drafted that have transferred is very, very low. I don't know if it's a talent thing or if we subconsciously look at them as running away from a responsibility. But the reality is, that's why I talk about quantifying it for them guys. When you transfer, 2 things we know for sure, especially if you transfer with this new rule talk about put in, your chances for graduating from college drop dramatically, which means you're setting yourself up for a tough life when you get done playing. And the other thing is, the numbers say you're hurting your chances of becoming an NBA player. Now, you all have to understand one thing. Not all of them want to be pros. And to be a great coach, you got to take guys that maybe not have the level of commitment that you have or your best players have and still win. I remember one year Tom Izzo took a team to the Final Four, which I didn't know how he did it, because I would have lost my mind with that team. And I give him all the credit in the world because he was able to take a group of guys who I quite honestly didn't think were great guys, because I knew some of them from the recruiting trail and just watching them and knowing people that knew them. And he was able to mold them and fight them, and they got to the NBA. So, but again, going back to what I said, you have to quantify it show them. Like, this is the position you're putting yourself in by making this decision to transfer. You're setting yourself and you're making it a harder road for yourself.
Yeah, because I think the misconception, and that's the misconception that a lot of these kids are having. You go somewhere, have some success,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden it's like, this isn't good enough. I need to go to a bigger school with more visibility. And as you know, in this where technology is and social media and the fact that you can get on, Synergy and things and find games, like it's not hard. It's not the 80s. Like you can be found if you're a good player. And that's and I think that's the messaging that's not getting out, because when you look at it, that transfer list is up to 700. And the question is why? And some of them don't want to be pros. But
let me say one thing, and I say this all the time, and Daryl's heard me say this a bunch. Don't expect an 18 to 22-year-old to act like anything other than an 18 to 22-year-old.
Good point.
So if you go look at the non-athlete and the transfer rate of the non-athlete, it's right there with the athlete. So it's like, I think for the non-athlete, it might be like 38% of all freshmen will transfer by the time they reach their sophomore year, before the end of their sophomore year. That for the school in general, and I think in men's college basketball, it's like 34% of them. So that's, again,
it's right on par.
An argument I have with the media. Like, and I have this argument with Jeff Goodman all the time. Why do you keep acting like there's some epidemic and some tragedy going on? Like, they are acting like their peers. Just because they bounce a basketball, don't make it worse. Okay, don't act like it's worse. And I think I've gotten him to come down a little bit on this whole thing. He still puts out the numbers, but he leaves out those hyperbolic words like travesty and epidemic, all that type of stuff. They're acting like 18 to 22-year-olds.
Right.
Hey, Paul, the only difference is, when they transfer, they don't go on Twitter and consult and have the big Twitter thing when they transfer. I spoke to the Lord. I spoke to everybody in my circle. When they 18 to 20-year-olds, yes, they do transfer schools, okay, but they just don't go on Twitter and have Jeff Goodman tweet it out, and all those other guys. Next question is Dwayne Simpkins from George Mason University, and then we're going to finish up with Chris Soney.
Coach, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Dwayne. How you doing?
Doing well. Gentlemen, good evening to everybody. Before I ask you my question, Coach, I do want to chime in on recruitment thing. I had a guy hit me up. He was from a Power 5 school, and he's like, hey, we're looking at this kid from your conference. And I'm like, okay. That's like, what are you looking for him to do? And he was like, well, start and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, y'all the Power 5, like you expect him to come and like start and like do double. And it occurred to me, and I was like, what's going to happen is it's all going to be watered down to the point where it's like you're not going to know the difference between what a high major player is and a mid major player is. And I was like, and I told him, he's like, damn, Seth, you're kind of crushing the kid. I said, no, I said I've got to do a better job of this, because in my mind, I look through it from the lens of when I played in the ACC, and I'm thinking like a center. I'm thinking Tim Duncan. I'm thinking Joe Smith. I'm thinking Rasheed Wallace. I'm like, yo, this dude wouldn't have started. He probably wouldn't have played for us back in the day. So I think that's just what's going to happen over a period of time. But like you say, I think the numbers are going to flesh out over a period of time where guys are going to recognize that, going to a quote unquote higher school doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a pro. And like you said, everybody doesn't want to be one. But I digress, man. I can talk about that all day long.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dwayne.
No, go ahead.
No, one of the things, again, talking about the rules y'all got to get to is you a lot of coaches don't agree with me on this, but I think you guys have got to get to the point like they do in college hockey. Let these kids go through the draft and then come back.
Right.
You have about 100 to 100, I think 150 to 180 college hockey players that are playing right now, NCAA hockey, that have their draft rights held by NHL teams. There's nothing like going out there and getting smacked around and realizing like, yo, I'm not ready for this, and let me go back and enjoy the college life. Right. I remember talking to one college coach. He said that his player didn't have a respect for the degree from the school the night before the NBA draft, but certainly after, when he didn't get drafted, then he had a lot of respect for the education he was getting there. So again, I think you guys have to do better with, getting the word out to these people on your campuses that can help shape legislation. Like, this would be a good thing for everybody. I hope college coaches continue to drive the message home to the players that all you're doing by transferring is reduce your chance to graduate, reduce your chances to be looked at favorably by NBA teams. And then some of them are going to say, I don't care, I just want to go. Nothing
So
you can do about it.
I appreciate that, Coach. My question to you was, going back, if you could go in a time machine or whatever, you're coming from a Georgia Tech, you know, high major, great resources, and you go to a George Mason, completely different situation from obviously a fiscal standpoint and as well as a recruiting standpoint. How different was it in terms of trying to develop a culture? And are there anything things that you know now, would you do different walking through the door at George Mason?
I wouldn't have walked through the door. No, again, I was very naive, man. I mean, I've been in the business a long time. Like, Tom O'Connor was mid-60s, great man, but he was probably on his way to retirement. Dr. Merton, great man, loved him, but he was 70-something on his way to retirement. Never should have taken that job. Never should have taken that job. I took it because I liked the area and I couldn't see myself sitting in the house. And so I should have stayed away from it. But I thought that we had everything there personally. I mean, maybe different now when you're there, but I thought we had the people there to create a good culture. Like Debbie Carbato is a really good person. The academic advisor, what's his name? Michael
Lett.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. I'd got to know the cook. I don't know if Coop is still in the cafeteria up there.
Yeah.
So Coop, I used to make sure Coop took care of our players. Like those are the things that I was more interested in, like people around them to make their life, comfortable and better. So I thought everything was there. I just didn't mesh with the new AD and the new administration. We've talked about this. And so I have no ego about, like one of the things that drives me crazy when I hear stuff about, we don't have the facilities, we ain't talking about football. We're talking about basketball. You get 6, 7 bad dudes, you can win some games. And yes, is it easier? But Daryl will tell you, I didn't have the building they have at Georgia Tech now. I didn't have a new locker room. I didn't have new offices. We used to fly commercial except for weekday games when we flew back charter. And we were recruiting the best players in the country. I remember walking to Daryl's office one day. He had a semi-used couch. You remember the story? And we couldn't get any new furniture from the AD at the time. He wouldn't give us nothing. He wouldn't give me a grade. And I said to Daryl, I said, where you get this chair? And he didn't even look. He didn't even want to look at me. He said, I got it from the women. I said, what do you mean you got it from women? He goes, yeah, they just got new furniture, so I took it from them. And that's a true story. But that didn't stop me from recruiting Thaddeus Young, Javaris Critton, Iman Shumpert, Derek Favors, Ghani Lawal. And so I think the people that you have around you are more important. CY was as a term, buildings and bushes. We didn't worry about buildings and bushes to win recruiting battles. We won recruiting battles based on, here's how we're going to help you. So have them sit down with, I don't know what Debbie does for you guys. Now, Debbie Carbato, she was a sharp woman. Like when you took over, we left a couple of good players there, right? Fair?
Yeah. Most improved players, second team, all A-10. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and we were building like Lockett and Porter and Jackson, and we were building, but obviously the way I was building it, they didn't want that, which is good. We all serve at the pleasure of the AD. But yes, if we can give them nice things, it's great. But don't ever forget about how important those personal relationships are to recruiting and maintaining a positive culture. Like I said, I watch Virginia and I watch Florida State, and I don't think they have as much resources as some of the other schools in their league. They got resources, but you know what I'm saying.
Hey, Coach, I'm gonna cheat real quick. I've been wanting to ask you this for the longest time. Right. If you were knowing what you know, and you hit on this, kind of quickly, in your mind, when you got fired from Georgia Tech and this opportunity was being presented, or is it, you were going through the process of George Mason, in your mind, did you feel like if I do skip a year as an African-American coach, I might not get another chance?
And I'm always conscious of that type of thing, but I honestly did not come to mind because I was I was disappointed when I got fired. I was down when I got fired at Georgia Tech because that was my dream job. And hey, I was fired fair and square. When I left Mason, it was like, hey man, whatever, let's keep it moving. But no, I didn't think of that. It didn't come across my mind.
Gotcha. My bad, Kev. I cheated, man.
No question.
No problem. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. Decent. We're gonna leave this up to the young fella, the youngest dude on the Zoom tonight. But I'm telling y'all, he's a young shark, up and comer. Okay, yes. Chris Olney.
Chris, before you say a word, let me say one thing. Chris's dad was one of my
Amen.
mentors.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
And as good a human being as I ever met, he
Amen.
was the one. He and Don Anderson
Yes,
convinced
sir.
me to hire Cliff Warren, which is one of the best decisions I ever made in coaching. Cliff was with me at Siena, where he did an unbelievable job with our guards, and then he was at Georgia Tech. He was the primary guy that recruited Jared Jack. All he did was win the regional MVP. We went to the Final Four. So I owe Chris and his family an awful lot for my success at this profession. So Chris, go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Coach. It's funny because he was telling me a couple of months ago, he was telling me about Kerry Kittles and that process when you guys first got there. right before we went. It was But no, first of all, thank you. I mean, first year after, as a college coach, this has been great. This right here has been great for me. But in terms of knowing the rules and kind of looking toward the future, I know you talked about agents and the transfer rule. What do you think is the competitive advantage or disadvantage of the new making money off of your likeness and marketing? And what do you think that will lead to in the future?
I'm glad you asked that question because I look at that question. I look at that arrival of the name, image, and likeness totally different. I think it's going to help to cut down the number of transfers because the reality is there's only so many dollars to go around. And so if you're at, let's take Bowling Green, for example, and you got a good deal with a car dealership there, are you going to then leave that to go to, name any blue blood school that may have 4 or 5 guys or 6 guys that have bigger name recognition than you? I think it's all, again, how all you use it. I believe if the name, image, and likeness comes in and coaches are resourceful enough and they get out in the community, they're going to find a way to make their best players happy, okay? And let them understand if you choose to walk away from whatever deal you have right now, there's no guarantee you're going to go to Carolina or UCLA, Kentucky, and get as good or a better deal because you're just not going to be that guy. That's how I look at it. Now, people on this call may have different opinions about it, but I really believe that the name, image, and likeness thing could stabilize college basketball. I think allowing kids to come back from the draft if they don't get drafted or even they get drafted in the second round. Hell, you have a kid that was a 12th pick overall in the NHL draft that went back and he's playing, I think, at Providence or Boston College right now. But if you have fewer kids leaving the high majors, there are fewer spots to be filled so they don't recruit, pull from the lower level. But I think the name, image, and likeness thing can help stabilize the game. That's one man's opinion.
Hey, Paul, I can't thank you enough. Thank you is probably too small of a word for taking the opportunity tonight. I asked you to come on and share your, share with us. And that started at 7:30. It's 9 o'clock. And
no, that's fine. I appreciate it, man.
When I say that, and I say that because it exceeded my expectation. And I said it before. I hope my vibe and what I stand for and what I believe in represents what you see on the screen, which is my tribe. And these are the people that I kick it with. And I have a great deal of respect for and have learned a great deal from. But you, in your way, have impacted me, like I said before, with how you have handled yourself from a professional standpoint is, just gone without, me ever, saying thank you enough, because every time I had the opportunity to speak to you, you took time to share, pour into me. So fellas, hey, we're going to continue to do this. I hope that this is the platform that we can continue to help each other. We're all believers in iron sharpens iron. So hopefully we can continue to make each other better. I wanted to go in this direction to have a person like Paul Hewitt to start us off, and talk about the things that I feel are really, really relevant and that will resonate and that will move forward. X and Oing is one thing. We know about the importance of recruiting, but more important than anything else, I think some of the things that Paul shared about the mental health and touching lives and pouring into people. If we keep doing that, man, we're going to keep creating living trophies. And all of you already know what that means, to me. So I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day, taking time away from your family to be a part of this Zoom. And Paul, again, thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, you can.
Fellas, y'all got to be you got to be your greatest advocates. Like, stop with the, so and so's doing this, so and so's doing that. If there's any issue, go to that person. But I want to be able to go out and watch a college game and not hear somebody tell me some myths and some urban legend about how awful college coaches are, because all y'all do a great job. I don't care anybody tells me, y'all do a great job. You guys probably have the hardest job on your campus when it comes to sports. And it shows in your intelligence, how you handle things, your work ethic, all those things. And keep doing a great job, but help each other.
All right, fellas. Hey, see you next Thursday.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you.
All right, Ski. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks,
Tell your family, say hello, Chris.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you all.
Thanks, guys. This is awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Good job, Kev.
Skeets, one.